One of the things that's always been important to me about coming up to our family farm in Upper Michigan is the stories that we always tell every year. And certain stories get told every year. Stories about past relatives, particularly my grandmother Ines or my grandfather Cully or even my dad who grew up on the farm. Something important that I've realized in the last couple years is the power of the Puotinen women in their storytelling. It's been something very profound to understand that these stories, which mean so much to our family, have really been passed on in a variety of different ways by the women, the Puotinen women, particularly my grandmother Ines and my mother Judy. Cully and I first started keeping company in September 1938, the autumn after I'd finished my 4 years in Crystal Falls High School. We were married on August 31st, 1940, and made our home with Cully's mother and father on the home farm.
Your dad and I were dating. We were engaged. It was 1964, so I was a senior in college and he was a first-year student in the seminary. We drove up from Rock Island to the farm, and of course I had never been here, and everything was very pleasant, and it was a beautiful May Day weekend, and I just remember that his parents were very friendly, but it was, first time meeting someone, and but I thought the place was very pretty. When you married into a Finnish family in Finland, or when you married into this household, you were not much more than a maid. And that's what became of Ines. And so when the grandparents died, then she was a maid to Cully, even when he was fully functioning. He was township clerk, and she was his unpaid secretary. And he just lived his life as he chose, on whatever schedule he chose. And if he wanted to go to bed at 2 in the afternoon and sleep till midnight, that's what he did. And then if he felt like getting up and doing his books, then she was going to get up and do the books with him. He would sit at the kitchen table and just order her about. Get me bread, get me butter, put this on, do this, do that. And she would willingly and happily do it. But he was out on the tractor wanting to do some farm chore, and he called her out to the tractor, and Ines said there were these big chains, and he wanted her to attach these chains, and he wanted her to lift this heavy thing, and well, he was just sitting there ordering her around, and we were visiting, and Ines came into the kitchen, and she was just fuming, and you normally didn't see that. And she said, Cully wanted me to do this, and she put my hands on my hips and looked right at him and said, "You can go to hell, do it yourself." It is also a part of Finnish culture that women played a very significant role in a family. Not only in the house, but Finnish women have traditionally, in the old country, and even in this country as immigrant women, held leadership positions.
In 1968, the cook at the Fortune Lake Bible Camp contacted me about helping to find a second, third cook. I agreed to help, but after fruitless efforts, Cully told me I should go. I didn't think I was qualified, and he thought I was, so for 2 summers I worked there during camping season. The first year as second cook in charge of desserts, and the following summer I was co-head cook. I was in charge of desserts and also in charge of ordering supplies, etc. That was a gratifying and learning experience, and I loved it.
Cully was one of 12 children, and they all left home and made their fortunes. But he was up here, and he made a conscious choice to keep the farm and take care of his parents and become a farmer, which was fine. However, the relatives would come up in the summer, the way I understand it, and try to take things out of the farm and not really realize that he was working here, making the farm, keeping the farm in the family name. They just looked at it as a place they came and a place they grew up, and they wanted an artifact from it. So Ines told me very soon into our marriage that I couldn't expect, I would always be with Cully an outsider, because he saw me as just another one of those people. Cully didn't want me snooping. So all those years, from 1964 to 1992, I may have looked in the barn, but I never went through the barn. I was never in the dairy room. I never saw where the stanchions were. I was never in the grain shed. I was never in the basement. I was never in the attic. I was never in spare bedrooms up here. You simply were told you couldn't.
Nana, what you doing?
Just saw some stuff in there. It was a clash of culture, because there was no way that I was going to be the dutiful daughter-in-law and take orders. That wasn't going to happen, and it never happened. It just wasn't going to happen. And I think Cully knew that. They had been married from like 1940 to 1964, and really didn't have this place as their own to do with as they wished until about 1963, 62 or 63. So Johanna was the master of the house and kept the keys, so to speak. I think Ines had a very good relationship with her, and but the thing is, she was sick for many, many years with a variety of ailments, and including cancer of the mouth, and was in incredible pain. And it took its toll on Ines. So by the time I met Ines, she had been through all of that trauma. So Ines was worn out by then.
During the war, I have been a leader in the local war club and have to canvass for bond drives, Red Cross, scrap iron, and anything else that may come up. Cully was made a committee member sometime later, and we attend the monthly meetings at Amistad Town Hall and enjoy them very much. In 1950, Cully and I were co-leaders of the 4-H Club and carried 3 projects: garden, canning, and dairy. I took care of the garden and canning, and Cully the dairy. In the fall of 1950, I organized the sewing club, and Cully had a tractor maintenance club. After Achievement Day in the spring, we had a local program, and we presented awards and pens to the members.
I'm particularly happy to have this space as my own studio at the farm, because as we started cleaning it up, I found needles and pins, and I know that, and we still have the original sewing machine, and I know that she would take men's overcoats and cut them down and make coats for art. She was a very accomplished seamstress.
I did a lot of sewing. During the war years, when material was scarce, I took apart old garments and made clothes for family and neighbors. I made so many snowsuits for children I could almost do it with my eyes closed. Long after other members were fast asleep, I'd be up sewing.
I push this little button, and then I can go another direction. Look at that go, huh? This loom dates to about 1920, and it's a commercial loom. It doesn't have a name on it. A lot of them do have a name, but I don't see a name on it. It's a rug loom used exclusively for that purpose, and it was used extensively in this whole Upper Peninsula by the Finnish immigrant women. They wove all their rugs, rag rugs, tearing up old clothing and fine carpet warp, and then they'd weave all their rugs. And in this family, it goes back to
Grandma Puotinen.
yeah, Johanna.
Johanna Puotinen.
She was the original weaver, and then Art's mother Ines learned to weave on it, and I know her sister Ilmi wove on it. They would first construct the logs without nails, and then they would chink it or stuff it with old pieces of cloth, and we can see that here. I've never seen this before. And then they put whatever they used as a chinking material. It looks like it was concrete, but this would act as an insulator. Became a place where we just went to get away, and I think everybody in their life, if you can have that opportunity to have a place, it's good to have that.
The farm, I really think of it as a home space, a space that has taken me in and helped to heal me. And it was particularly important for me when we were filming this in the summer of 2002, because I had just suffered a miscarriage. And from early on in the miscarriage, I really looked to the farm as a nurturing place, which was very interesting to me. And on the day when I thought I might have miscarried and I had to take the train up to the hospital, when I was on the train, I remember closing my eyes and just visualizing being at the farm and walking along the tree line of the front 40 field, and somehow that made me feel better.
Usually you can hear both sides. Hearing nothing. Well, I think good eye and passion for the subject. I think back on all the happy times that I heard about that they had here, and so I imagine myself, at least, as a continuation of that history, and I would like to honor that. I like to pick raspberries because Grandma Puotinen and her sister Ines Tuna used to do that. So I feel like I'm doing something. I feel some sense of communion with them, even though they're dead. This place represents work because in order for all you guys to come and bring your friends, in order for Ann and Yaz to bring their friends, somebody has to mow the grass. Somebody has to clean the toilets. Somebody has to do the sheets. Somebody has to make sure that it's vacuumed and cleaned, the beds are made. People come up and they say, oh, we have a good time and we partied and we did this thing. They played croquet and we played volleyball and we did this and we... Well, yeah, you did, but somebody made it happen. It's one of those things, it's one of those love-hate things where on the one hand it's a really good thing. On the other hand, it's a real drain. It drains your energy and it drains your pocketbook.
In the early 1940s, we organized the Women's Mission Guild, which consisted of the younger women in the church. The older women's group was the Bethany Sisterhood. Later, we combined the groups and were the LCW of the church. I have served in every office of that group and most often as president. At present, I am Bible study leader of our circle and president of the LCW. However, after some medical problems in the last 5 years, my efforts and activities have slowed down a bit.
She had untreated diabetes, so she became virtually blind. Her heart condition was made even worse. When she finally did start taking insulin, it really was too late. So she just died rather suddenly, but as a result of the diabetes and the heart condition, her personality changed. Then she had the added obligation of taking care of Cully. For the last 8 years of Cully's life, he was basically immobile. I don't think she saw it as any kind of burden. She always used to say that she and Cully were partners and they helped each other. Mm-hmm. So I think she saw it as what you do.
My dad was in the living room and he asked her if she could fix some supper for them. And she asked what he would like, and I think it was soup and sandwiches. And so she went into the kitchen and prepared them, and then he heard a thud, and she had fallen right by the stove. So she died very suddenly with a heart attack.
So it was very strange. All of a sudden she was gone.
In the past couple years, I felt a little bit of sadness when I think about the farm, particularly when I think about my grandmother Ines, because she died in 1990 when I was only 16 years old, and I feel like I wasn't old enough to really get to know her or appreciate her.
The house became so much Ines to me that it's just since last summer that I don't actually hear her rumbling around in this house. Every time I walked in this house, I could see her face, I could hear her, I could feel her here. I never thought of it so much as Cully's house as Ines's house. This place didn't feel like ours until last summer when we started taking the carpet out and adding the color paint and putting our stamp on it. It's just now that I have felt that this is truly our place. And until it was my time, it was not my place to say anything. And that was the role I was asked to play, and that's the role I played. I never felt that I was unwanted or that people resented me being here. It was just a matter of I had to wait my turn.
How do I honor my heritage without romanticizing it? How do I gain an understanding that at least touches upon the complexity of this place and how it's shaped who I am. And how does that understanding recognize the ways in which this place is so much larger than me and the other members of the Puotinen family?
Everywhere your dad and I go, he runs into someone who perpetuates that sense of belonging here, that even if you're not here, even if you don't retire here, you still belong here. You have a place where you belong, and the community is acknowledging that you belong. But it is a place we can feel good about each other and celebrate ourselves as a family and nurture each other. I've never thought about that before, but I think that's the essence of what it is. If people actually invest in you, if they say, I want to hear about your life, and I want to take time to hear every detail about what you're doing. I'm going to leave my farm property to you. I believe in you. I think that you have something of value to give. I want you to be here. Then that's why I'm drawn to this place, because this is a place that gave me some nurturing. I was encouraged to just be who I was and enjoy who I was. And that stays with me. That was the spirit that Ines had. And I think it's the spirit of this house. And all those kids, as adults, that's the spirit they felt. The grandparents had that same spirit. And so I'm hoping that that is the legacy of our family.
It's worm guts.
Yeah, they do. They are.